Hey, Dan. Hi, Sherry. Dan, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Susan, Sherry.
Good
Sherry,
stuff.
can you hear me? Sherry?
He muted. She's still muted.
Yeah. Oh, she's connected now. Are you connected, Sherry? I guess Sherry didn't want to hang around.
She leave?
She's probably trying to re-log in. Hey, Megan.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I didn't get a chance to congratulate you.
Thank you.
I was looking for you a couple of times down there.
I heard.
Here we go.
Hey, Rick, how are you doing?
Very good, thanks.
Hey, any news on Ed?
Same. I mean, he's gonna be out probably for a while. Probably, I think he's got to see another doctor in June. So, but he's feels he's getting better. That's the good thing.
I just sent Sherry a text. Hey, that's a nice backdrop, Rick. Really classy.
I know, huh? Hey, that's the truth, right? That's what we're dealing with.
All right, Sherry's having a few computer problems. She said she's rebooting now. As soon as she logs in, we'll stop. So Dan, how long did this hang with you?
Just a few days. I really didn't feel that bad. I felt good.
I don't feel bad. I feel like I got a cold, but it's
Yeah.
lack of energy that's got me, boy.
The recording stopped.
Why is that?
I have no idea.
Dave, do you know how to get a hold of them and let them know that? You're muted.
Chris, are you still online? Bernica? Let me see if I can try to get a hold of him.
All right.
That might just be somebody specifically. I don't know if that would be the whole meeting. Let me sign off and see if something's going on.
Okay, we'll wait for you. How you doing, Sherry?
Good.
Good.
Sorry I'm late. I had to reboot things.
No, we just found out the recording stopped and Dave's gonna try to find out why.
Oh,
I don't know if we could have the meeting if it's not recorded.
I
understood.
don't think so.
So what's the reason for that backdrop? I mean, don't get me wrong, I like it.
I just happen to find it.
No, I like it.
Yeah,
I mean, you could have had the clarifiers agitating back there, you know?
I know. Well, that's the dirty water. I could have had a clean water one too, but I think let's go with the dirty water.
Give it to them like it is.
There you go.
Should have a mouse running out the pipe.
They're rats, Dan, rats.
No, I don't want to say that. My brother used to be in the conduits for Edison.
Okay.
Dave, did you find out what's going on?
No, nobody's answering. It says right up there that it's still streaming live on YouTube, though. Trying to find it.
Is there a way you could double check if it is or not, or?
Yeah, give me 1 sec.
Get my cheese. What?
Like, I just got a text from Michael Lawton saying the meeting is still on the air. So I would assume that it's being recorded.
Yeah, I think that somebody probably hit a button and they stopped recording it individually. It's showing it's still live right now.
Okay, then I'm gonna just go on, I guess. Welcome everyone to tonight's Rockland Sewer Commission meeting. It's being broadcast live on youtube.com. We're not sure if it's been recorded in WRPS or not. Participating in tonight's meeting would be Dan DeRoss, Cherry Valley, and myself as voting commissioners. With that, I'll take a motion to open the meeting.
Motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, Mr. DeRoss,
Yes.
Ms. Valley,
Yes.
and Mr. Hessian is a yes. Robin is on vacation, so we don't have meetings minutes to approve. Dave, I believe she said we had a couple of abatements.
We have one abatement. So I went over it with Robin. She did the similar abatement with the water department. She supplied the documentation for the leak that she had at her home. This is up in Leisure Woods. So if anybody knows, the water supply comes underneath the modular homes. So they're out in the air underneath. So there's no basement. So there was a leak underneath. Wholly supplied documentation that it was leaking. And she's looking to get back the consumption from the leak and subtracting out her normal bill, just like what water department is. So the suggested abatement would be $362.73. And again, water approved the abatement on their end. So typically you guys would do the same if it's something like that.
This is not tied into the same one we had last month, was it? Same leak?
No, this one's at Cherry Circle.
Okay.
9
make a
Cherry
motion.
Circle.
I'll
Yeah,
motion that we
maybe.
approve that abatement for $362.73.
Second,
All in favor, Mr. DeRoss,
yes.
Ms. Valley? Sherry, you're muted.
Yes,
And Mr. Hession's a yes. That's it, Dave?
Yeah, and then on to drain layers. We have one drain layers license to approve. This is a re-up from Silverado Construction. So they've been in the system probably for 20 years now. So again, it's just a re-up. Their references are still good.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we approve that re-up. Do I have a second?
Second,
I have a second. Mr. DeRoss, how you vote?
yes.
Ms. Valley?
yes,
And Mr. Hession's a yes. New connection hearings, we have 320 Concord Street. Do we have the representatives from 320 Concord here tonight?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Al Loomis from McKenzie Engineering Group.
And that's it?
I believe Mr. Petrosi was going to be on.
I see someone down there as owner.
Yeah,
Owner,
Lou is-
could you identify yourself, please? Well, evidently he didn't. Mr. Loomis, let me see before we go. Let me see what he said. Okay. The board members that'll be voting on this will be Mr. DeRoss, Ms. Valley, and myself. As far as I know, the prints that I have are dated December 7th of 21. I went on the website today and it shows updated prints from December 6th of 21.
yes, sir. I was contacted by Dave Taylor and I sent along updated, the updated plans for that. They're generally revised through February of 22, February 18, 22. And there's one sheet, the grading sheet, I believe, that is updated through March 16th of 22.
But the, as far as from the sewer side of it, those are up to date and current?
Yes,
Okay, what I'd like you to do is do your presentation on it. And I'm gonna be asking a lot, I have a lot of questions, and I want you to please explain the doghouse in great detail, if you would. So with that, I'll turn it over to you.
thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a proposed sewer connection for 4 residential units of 3 bedrooms each. Would you like me to share my screen, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, if you could.
Certainly. Give me a moment. I'm not real good with this, so.
Hey, join the club.
Hopefully you can see that.
Yep.
Okay, good. So we're proposing sewer connections along the rear of the units. This is a driveway that leads to each of the units. The rear of the units are along basically the westerly side. And you can see the sewer connection, the sewer line along the backs of the units. So we're directing all of that flow to a manhole with a Muffin Monster grinder at this manhole here from there, we're proposing a gravity line to feed into the existing line. This is an existing sewer easement that fed the original dwelling here at 320, as well as the abutting property. You can see the sewer line going off in this direction for this property at 330 Concord. So that line within that easement feeds out into the street, into the main in the street. We're proposing a doghouse manhole here that would leave the flow in this line uninterrupted during the construction of the manhole. We would propose to do a typical doghouse connection where you provide a base and then the sewer manhole section with the doghouse shaped openings on either side, as well as an opening to accept the new line to be constructed over that. We could then, as I say, leave the flow uninterrupted for that while connecting to it. The manhole is proposed outside the private property within the right-of-way of Concord Street to take place in this location. So we would utilize the existing service. There'd be no interruption. There'd be no construction out in the street, which is key. And I don't know, Mr. Chairman, how much detail would you like me to go into with the doghouse manhole?
Do you
Is that
have
adequate, or-
you have a print of a what a doghouse looks like that you could share? If not, I believe I do.
It's on the, it's on D4.
Okay, let me go to that.
There's a general pic of the doghouse. There you go.
So I trust you can all see that. So the doghouse openings would be an inverted U shape on each side of this manhole that would, this base unit with the doghouse openings would slide down onto a base constructed in place. So you would just set it over the existing pipe. You could even do the connection of the new line and construct the table around it, the invert. And then I think what is typically done, I'll ask Dave to correct me, but oftentimes you leave the invert of the pipe in place and just saw out the top of the PVC pipe or whatever the construction is, and open it up to access so that the new opening can flow into that invert. And it also provides the steady invert in the bottom of the manhole. So that's it in a nutshell. I'll be happy to answer specific questions about that if you have any. But that's what we're proposing in that location. The flow expected based on Title V numbers for a typical bedroom, 110 gallons per day, would be a total of 1,320 gallons per day. That's on the occupancy of 3 bedrooms times 4 units. So that would be the total flow. If I can go back to that original drawing, the utility plan. These would be gravity lines, but within, as I stated earlier, within this manhole, there would be a muffin monster grinder. I believe that was at the request of the commission, or it was talked about earlier on. So we'd be providing that at this location. I have sent along some additional information to Mr. Taylor for the 10K muffin monster. It's the smaller of the units. This is a fairly small application. So that's what we're proposing within that manhole.
May I ask a question?
Certainly.
What is prohibiting you from, is my cursor moving? What is prohibiting you from running that line on the westerly side directly into the sewer pipe? Why are you taking that 90-degree dog leg to a doghouse?
Are you asking coming out of the front of the units
So
instead?
I'm asking coming out of the back of the unit to the west, what you call the westerly side of the unit,
Yeah,
or the left-hand side.
okay.
Why aren't you going straight down to a manhole and into the sewer main?
Connecting directly out in this direction, out
Yep.
into the
Yep, I
street.
just want you to explain it, that's all.
I believe you'll have to forgive me because I'm filling in for Eric Shoemaker, who's on vacation. But I believe the discussion early on was that there was a desire not to disturb the existing sewer main in Concord Street. It's my understanding that there was concerns about the integrity of the pipe or something like that. So the decision at that point was made to utilize this existing connection by providing the pipe in this direction.
Okay, the reason I'm asking is just for clarification for new board members and anyone else that's out there. Dave, what is the problem with the integrity of the pipe there?
So the problem is you have an existing stub, coming into that sewer easement. And that is our 30-inch main pipe that goes to the plant directly. That's a direct line to the plant. So to try to cut into that and do because the only application you could do at that point, because it's high flow, would be to do a doghouse. A doghouse application is usually where you have a high flow area and there's not a way that you could divert the high flow around it to install a new manhole, a new sewer manhole with proper inverts. So to cut into a 30-inch main pipe at that point, you would have to put a manhole, and that is literally the main line that goes directly to the plant. That's only about, I don't know, a quarter of a mile away from the plant at that point. So, and you can't, there's no way of saying there's no debris getting into that and going to our grit chambers at that point. It's usually, from what I understand doing the history, that was the reason why John Laughlin did that original sewer easement, so they wouldn't have to cut into that pipe again at that point, and they did a shared line. The only problem I have with the design of the doghouse is you're going to have higher flow coming from the proposed units and less flow coming from the existing line. So my recommendation would be to put a regular sewer manhole with the proper invert and then come in a little higher from the existing line that's already there, because you would already have a higher flow coming from these 4 units than you would for the single family that's tied into it at that point.
Well, somebody just stole my thunder on a chat line there, because I'd question that, because if you look up the other end of the street, which is even closer, you had 419 through 427 cut into the hook up there without a doghouse. Right?
Again, it's just my recommendation. This is all on the board for final decisions.
No, and I appreciate
Yeah.
your recommendation, but what I'm saying is, what would be the different circumstances that if they could do it after the fact up there at the other end, which is closer to the plant, to me, it'd be less of a risk doing it down this end than up there.
I didn't see any cut-ins from there, and not to say that they didn't have stubs, but I didn't see any cut-ins going to those properties, saying that there was a cut-in into that 30-inch, and not that they didn't have stubs over there. I know there was one original stub from the junkyard. I don't know what else was there. There was one to the garage at that point, or how many stubs were brought over there. I'm just going by my past
Oh, no,
infrastructure
I
experience.
appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, I mean, you
appreciate
gotta
that.
remember, that's a 30-inch main pipe going to the plant. And how are you diverting that? And then also, how are you, what's the ramifications if something happens to get into that pipe and heads to the plant during construction at that point?
Okay, no, but,
Yeah.
the other concern I have is with that easement and the impact to the Wong family, the other residents.
Well, that's Chuck. That's why I'm saying maybe not do the doghouse and add a regular sewer manhole. The invert, the proponent invert would be for the 4 units, because you're having a higher flow from the 4 units. Your drop in would be from the existing line from the neighbor, because you'd have a higher flow. If you did it the opposite way with the doghouse, and typically, like I said, the doghouses are used in a high flow area where you can't, you have to divert the flow temporarily. Maybe that's what I would suggest. That's the only suggestion I would think that would do that.
Well,
Because then
I'm
you'd
not a
have
big fan, I'm not a big fan of dog houses anyway, but again, if I look at I haven't had the experience you have, but I'm looking at a doghouse application. To me, it would impact those people, and I would like to read into the record a letter from I believe it's the Wong family at 323. It was sent to zoning. So it is a public document. I looked at it up on the website, and I'm only going to mention specifically the 5th paragraph, which states, additionally, our property being 330 has a shared sewer line that was connected to the former property at 320 Concord Street. How will this formally be addressed? Will there be any impacts, direct or indirect, to our sewer service? At the present time, we receive 0 correspondence from the developer regarding this matter. For the record, we do not want our service disrupted or disturbed in any and all means. There have been several instances where folks have encroached on our property in the shared sewer line without our consent. As a property owner, we would like our property lot to be respected at all times and be informed of all aspects of the development. Mr. Loomis, have you had any contact, or do you know if your firm's had any contact with the Wongs?
I can't speak to that, Mr. Chairman. As I say, Eric has been the lead on this project, but he's on vacation. So I'm not sure if that's the case or not. I would submit to you that by utilizing a doghouse connection here, it would provide the least disruption, if any at all, to their service, because with due respect to Mr. Taylor, we would be able to shape the invert from the new connection. You're all familiar with a brick invert of a sewer, where you try to direct the flow in the direction that the sewer wants to flow by curving the brick invert. So what we would attempt to do would be to provide that curve that gets it going in the downstream direction, and so it would not impact the upstream to the abutting property. If we were to install a new manhole, we would have to, at least for a short period of time, cut the pipe, and then you'd have to place a balloon in there and stop the flow, and perhaps even have to pump. That would be on the abutting property. We're trying to avoid work on the abutting property with respect to them. So you'd have to take the time to cut the pipe, install the new base unit for the sewer, and then make the connections. So there would be at least a temporary disruption of flow from the abutter, as opposed to being able to maintain flow with the doghouse connection. We also—
How would this affect that easement, though? There is a legal easement on that.
It doesn't. I believe that there was back and forth on that within the zoning process. And I believe a legal opinion was rendered regarding that. I will stand corrected if otherwise, but I remember Eric speaking to that. So because it's the bulk of the work, in fact, all of the work concerning the sewer is taking place outside of private property and within the town right-of-way for Concord Street, there is no trespass or any such thing with respect to the easement. Getting back to the doghouse connection, we wouldn't be able to affect, if we cut that pipe to put a sewer manhole in there, we wouldn't be able to affect the uphill or downhill slope of the existing pipe without excavating and replacing a portion of that, at least in probably a significant portion. So I think that in either case, I think that leaves us in a situation where the new invert would have to be above the invert of the existing sewer connection, the existing pipe. And Dave, I may be misunderstanding your point, but I don't see how we could affect the inverts of the existing pipe on either the inlet or the outlet.
Right, so typically typically the doghouse, when you install a doghouse, your existing line is the lower line, correct?
Yes,
Right, so what I'm saying is if typically what you want is your invert, your brick invert, your trough, as we call it,
Yep.
is usually your high flow, and your lower flow pipe would be the drop in at that point. But I get what
Yes.
you're saying about the inverts, but what I'm saying is you're looking at 1,320 gallons a day coming from the 4 units, as opposed to a 3-bedroom house that already has the existing line.
right.
So, do you know what I'm saying? So the invert
do.
on the 4
Yep.
units should be lower, and that in the invert coming out of the existing manhole would be, we obviously don't want to cause any disruption to their existing service. So this was originally set up so it was only 2 houses at one time. You had, and it was a shared manhole. So I mean, you could temporarily put a balloon in there, and then you'd have to have a pump truck just if the manhole, the upstream manhole, received any effluent. So, I mean, that's the only
Right.
issue I have. I think if you did put a doghouse, you could have problems and disrupt the existing customer, existing resident, which obviously we don't want to do. That's the only problem I've had with it. So,
Right.
I
And
agree completely with Dave.
yeah. And it wouldn't be fair to that person. I mean, my suggestion would be new manhole, lower the invert, brick trough. That's the high flow directional going out into the street. This manhole would be in the town's format, so it's a new connection, new connections. And then you'd have to balloon the upstream manhole, and you would just have to have a pump truck on the
Right.
property where the work is, and just if not to disrupt that existing customer. I mean,
And it may not even get that far. I mean, it depends on the use in the existing house, obviously.
right,
If it's the right time of day and there's low use, it may not
Right.
be an issue at all.
right. And it might be,
you-
it might be something where, you reach out to the customer. If you're going away on vacation, we'll work around your vacation. And then
Right.
you're not dealing with anything.
But
No.
for clarification, under the best case scenario, because it's an existing pipe, we we don't have the ability to lower the
No,
invert out.
I know.
So at best, we could only match the invert in.
Right. Well, you would only need, you could split the pipe. So if you had a, a 10-inch invert or an 8-inch trough or a 10-inch trough, you'd only have to be an inch or two above that. Where the existing line is. Obviously, you'd have to see what the topo is going out to, what the invert is exiting the manhole, so. But I know what you're saying. You don't have a lot of play. The only issue would be is if you'd have to chase it back to the upstream manhole. So you'd have to get the grades on that where it's coming in and going out.
But then that defeats the purpose where you would have to relay that line within the easement. We're trying not to disrupt the neighbor's property.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I said, well, that's not the neighbor's property. That's the easement.
It's within the easement, but it would still involve disrupting the neighbor's property. It would be I don't know if you can see, it's kind of light.
Right. I know that.
This
I know
this
it's
sewer line runs
Right.
onto the neighbor's property in this location. It's kind of down the property line from this point out. But we would clearly be on the neighbor's property to try to relay this line. And that's what we're trying to avoid.
well, do we know what I'm looking at what are you at? 97.43. And then you're at, where is it on the what do you have for the invert on that one? 8964.
9.
I'm sorry, the invert of the sewer manhole out in the street is,
7.
the inlet is 8174. Up here, it's 8349.
And what about when you're coming from your muffin monster?
We were proposing 8199 for that, so which would be roughly the same. If we're 8174 here, it'd be roughly the same.
Same height.
The new pipe and the existing pipe would be roughly the same height, yes.
Right.
Well, that brings us to another matter with that dog leg. That's pretty close to the sanitary water line, isn't there a 10-foot horizontal buffer?
Yes, that's exactly why we put it along the back of the building, because there were going to be a number of conflicts if it were to go in the front.
Well, I'm looking right in the front too, where that's coming over.
I'm sorry?
I'm looking right around here too, in the front. Right there.
Are you going by where the crossover is, Chuck?
Yeah,
In the front of the driveway?
yep.
Right.
But that's minimizing the number of crossings we would have. If we were out front, depending where we put this, we would have at least the same number of crossings. I'm trying to see, so the rim, you have about little over 7 feet in difference between the rim elevation here and the invert, and I guess a little over 7 here as well. So you have the ability to cross under the proposed water line, which is obviously desirable. It's actually a requirement in Title V wherever possible. So even if this were too close, if you couldn't maintain the 18-inch separation, we could sleeve it, or we could do a concrete cradle, or whatever the commission is used to and the department is used to seeing. I suspect we can maintain separation. Normally a water line is 5 feet down. So we should have, if you take into consideration the diameter of the pipe, we still should have at least approaching 18 inches of separation between the bottom of the water line and the top of the sewer line. So, and it would be limited to one crossing here, as opposed to if you tried to put the sewer down here along the front of the units, now you're gonna have multiple crossings one way or the other because of the water, the individual water services.
Yeah. and then-
So,
So just to the board, just in the past, what it usually requires when you do a crossover like that, it requires a concrete cradle is what you've done in past history. And the other reason why the sewer is not in the front of the building is you're dealing with subsurface drainage system over on that side as well. Am I
yes,
correct, Al, on that?
you are,
Yeah.
and I forgot that. I knew it was there, but I forgot it. So thank you for bringing that up. There's a large, it's outlined here, that heavy dashed line. It's a large subsurface infiltration system. So it really then, particularly in this area in front of these units buildings 2 and 3, it really limits where you can cross, and it pretty much eliminates the ability to keep 10 feet between the sewer and water lines.
Mr. Loomis,
Yeah, okay.
at what level is the water table there?
Let me try to find some.
No, the reason I'm asking is if you're gonna we had one unit there prior. Now
Yep.
you're putting 4, and that to me is gonna disrupt the water table. Dave, do you think we're gonna see any more impact to I from that?
Well, that's typically one reason why people get away from the dog houses as well. I know we've required in the past couple years, we've gotten away from the dog houses where we can. Because over time you do it does show it may be 10 years, 15 years down the road because you're not using a rubber seal on like a regular sewer manhole, you're using a grout where the plastic comes in, a non-shrinking grout as they call it in the field. So, the water table is high over there. I mean, it's Concord Street, so typically in that area. But it was requirement by the stormwater MS4. They've met all the conditions on the subsurface.
That's all I wanted to hear.
Yeah.
Mr. Loomis, one thing I want you to, I'm sure you're aware of, because I know I've got mind rot here today. I'm trying to think of your partner, Brennan, Mr. Brennan. He was aware that we have a moratorium in place. And this project will be affected by that moratorium. Now, one of the things that's come up since you are not aware of probably is that since that moratorium went into effect July 1st of 21, we're served with a notice from the EPA, and we're waiting on an administrative order with conditions. It's going to, I imagine it's going to tell us we're going to have to remove some significant I before we take in any more users. Again, we don't know. So if anything, I would say even if this thing was just a green light all the way through, you're probably at least 6 to 8 months before we're able to give you an approval. Again, we're not voting tonight, and I would hope we don't have to vote before we get this letter, so we know what exactly we're dealing with. So I guess what I'm saying is that you'll have to excuse me. That the best we could probably do is at this point is talk it over amongst ourselves. I'd like to have further discussions with Dave on his suggestion with the manhole. I am more prone to lean that way than I am towards the doghouse. I'll let my other 2 board members speak their concerns. Dan, Sherry, do you have anything you want to ask or say, or? Dan, I'll let you start.
I'm just wondering about the stormwater from the roofs and stuff. I saw one say that the drains from the roof was gonna be hooked to the sewage. Is that true?
No, that's absolutely not true. We have accounted, let me see if I can find a plan that addresses that. I believe the grading and drainage plan. Hopefully you can see this. So to briefly go over the entire drainage system, the bulk of the site goes into the subsurface system and recharges it. It's designed to handle up to and including the 100-year storm. The front portion of the site is difficult to drain because it slopes towards Concord Street. So we are proposing this trough into a little rain garden. And in the event that that overflows, which is unlikely, it would be drained by this into that subsurface system. The roof drains, you see we actually have inverts assigned to know that we can actually get the water piped to the subsurface infiltration system. So this is one of the most remote locations. We're showing the inverts of the roof drains. And I know it's difficult to see, it's a busy drawing, but that's a D right there for drain. That's a D for drain. So this is draining like this around that building and on into this subsurface infiltration system. So no, there's no intent to tie anything into the sewer but sewer.
So if the board wish, just so they know that, all the subsurface, everything now on the MS4 stormwater in the town of Rockland. So any projects like this moving forward, everything has to stay on site. So we're not allowed to take anything more into our drainage system. Hence what Al made reference to with the subsurface drainage and also the above ground one out towards the front of the property, which they refer to as a rain garden, towards the front. So all the drainage stays on the property. I mean, you may get some existing, runoff off of the hardscape towards the front, but it's manageable. It's usually 85 to 90% stays on, so.
There's a very small area that we can't control, which is basically the apron into the driveway here. But everything else, all of this pavement, all of the roofs are controlled and directed into the subsurface system.
Thanks, Dan. Sherry, do you have anything?
No, you asked the question. I was curious as to why it wasn't running directly down to Concord Street.
Say that again, please.
I said I had the same question of why it wasn't connecting directly to Concord Street rather than cutting across the property.
Is there a way you could check for us up at 419 through 427 on those connections? If there was
As far as-
existing subs?
See if there were existing subs.
Yeah.
Yeah. we
How
can
they
check.
handled the tie-in to the 30 up there.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's just my suggestion. You guys could definitely vote the other way and put a sewer manhole and have them tied directly into that. I mean, we did suggest the grinder station. That's part of the new
Yeah.
ordinance that we set back in 2020. So that, that obviously gets some of the larger items. And so we're only dealing with liquid and fluid at that point, leaving the property. Especially where that goes directly into a 30-inch line directly to the grit chamber at the plant. So
How far is the nearest manhole out in the street?
what's that?
How far is the nearest manhole out in the street?
Well, you have a manhole directly running. If you look at the plans, there's one directly south of that on the plan. Al, you want to point to it on the plan to the right? lower part?
Other than this one, Dave, you mean?
No, that's the one I'm making.
Oh,
reference
okay,
to. There's
okay.
one directly south of the
So we would
manhole.
would only cut into the manhole, not the main.
Well, no, because you would run a change in direction where they're proposing the doghouse. You would run a change in direction manhole where the proposed doghouse is. So there's an existing line there without having to go out into the street.
And you're against going out to the street.
Well, that's just from my past experience because you're dealing with a 30-inch trunk line that goes directly to our plant, which is high flow. That pipe is at least halfway full all the time.
But wouldn't the grinder minimize the risk?
You can. Again, that's just my suggestion. You could definitely come out of that, not cross the water line, do a manhole out into the street, have a brand new manhole put into the street at that point. You know, at that point, they would have to do probably a doghouse because you're dealing with high flow, and then do a drop in right into that manhole. I mean, it's not any harder for them, honestly. They're not disturbing the existing customer or resident, and you could go directly out to that.
Mr. Loomis, would you be willing to look into that?
We can look into it, Mr. Chairman. The only thing I would submit to you is that if you're concerned with the doghouse manhole that we're proposing here, this is going to be another 5 feet deep
Right.
into the water table out here to provide a manhole over this 30-inch line. So you'd clearly be well into the water table there. So the same concerns would be present. The other thing is that, Dave, you correct me, but I think you'd be looking at a 5 or 6 foot diameter manhole.
You would be looking at a
to
6 foot
straddle a
manhole.
30-inch pipe.
Right.
So you're talking about fairly major construction out in the center of Concord Street, which is obviously disruptive to traffic. And it's going to be 13 feet deep, I think I saw. At least.
Yeah, you're at
invert
least
of the-
13
Yeah, the
feet.
inverter that we're showing here of the 30 inches, 76, 74, and the rim is 89, 64. So it's going to be similar up here. So you're talking about a fairly significant construction project to put a 6 foot manhole 13 feet deep in the middle of Concord Street. I think that's why one of the reasons we looked at coming over here, because it's off the street. I mean, we could put a base with the core and seal or the rubber boots for all connections here. I think, again, I'll defer to Dave, but I think there's a way you could cut these pipes and connect with like a flexible seal. So you'd put new stubs out of the manhole and connect to these existing pipes with a neoprene and stainless steel pipe clamp connection, as opposed to a doghouse connection here. So it would be watertight. And again, I defer to Dave's experience, but I could not argue that a doghouse manhole would have potential pratfalls with pitfalls, I guess, with infiltration. So it's more difficult to seal, obviously. So in my mind, this is the least painful, for many reasons, way to connect this. The only thing that is difficult to address is getting the existing connection higher than the proposed connection, because we're governed by this section of pipe, which is basically the same elevation as this. This is going to be very slightly higher than that. The only
Either
thing
way,
I would
you're going to
submit-
have construction ongoing in Concord Street.
I'm sorry.
Either way, you're going to have construction on Concord Street. And I'm looking at, if you went down as a direct line coming from your Muffin Monster, that's a short-term inconvenience pending a possible prolonged or sporadic interference to the abutters. And I'm being cautious with this because to me, this property's haunted. I mean, it's got a past and I don't want it coming back to bite us.
Understood.
I mean, the only other option, if the board wanted to do a manhole running north of where the grinder system is and crossed and did a new tie into the street, is you could do, it would have to be an injector drop-in at that point. Like you wouldn't be gravity from the grinder, you would have a pressurized system that would just drop into the 30-inch up high.
Well, like
But
I said, Mr. Loomis, with the pending EPA letter and the moratorium, I think we have room for discussion on this. And it will not affect your positioning on the waiting list for a
Okay.
permit. I think I'd like to continue this discussion on that, if you wouldn't mind. And I'd like to continue this to probably July. Maybe we talk about it again then.
Okay.
Would you be, that'll give us time to do have some more internal discussions. Would you be
As you
adverse?
say,
Pardon me?
as you say, based on your restrictions in terms of the moratorium, I guess that doesn't affect anything time-wise if we continue to July.
All right, I thank you. I make a motion, we continue the hearing on 320 at our July meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. DeRoss,
Aye.
Ms. Valley,
Yes,
and Mr. Hessian's a yes. Mr. Loomis, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members.
Before we go, Mr. Loomis, if you'd hang on one second.
Sure
I
thing.
did get an email tonight from another resident, I believe. And I'm just gonna, I took some edits I wanted to take out of it, but it says, to whom it may concern. I'm writing you today regarding the sewer line request for 320 Concord Street in the town of Rockland. The town of Rockland mandated 330 to join a shared sewer line with the illegal house at 320 Concord Street because the pipe could not take one more cut. I know that this is mandated shared sewer line was done because 320 Concord Street could not conform to the 10-foot buffer needed for the space between water and sewer and save money because betterment fees were not paid. Further goes on, the new sewer line request should not be approved. The sewer line cannot cross the water line. We know that. I believe they would not get the grade for flow. Having the sewer lines cross the entire property, 9743 will intersect with the water line. We've pointed that out. Also, the doghouse that is being proposed will be added to the already existing line that goes to 330, even if you put it in the street. This will be essentially a tie-in with the original line. It may be an issue for 330 Concord Street. This was from Susan Joyce.
If I
I'm not
if
gonna
I may,
read the
Mr.
second. Pardon me?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I think we addressed all of those issues.
No, I think we did. I think we did tonight.
Yeah,
But I'm just saying I forgot to read that in. The
Okay.
end of that email is not pertinent to this hearing. But like I said, I did receive it. I didn't want to be chastised for not reading it in.
thank you.
Okay, I think we continued the hearing until July. Mr. Loomis, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, all.
I'll ask for any comments on this later on in the hearing, and in the meeting rather. I'd like to have a brief discussion on the primrose that came in last week. We have 45 days to discuss that. I believe we told them to come back in June. I'm looking at their application was the date they came in. I checked with 314 CMR and it meets it. One thing I want to point out in 310 CMR, 314 CMR 7.12, which covers modification, suspension, or revocation. It goes on to read may in Part B, but not limited to violation of any permit terms. So all I can do is to make sure that you're aware that this will be affected by the moratorium as well. Do I have any more on that? Their engineer at the, as I mentioned at the last meeting, Mr. Grady, was fully aware of that moratorium, and that was, I took exception to their attorney saying that they were not aware because their engineer was. So that's all I have to say on that matter. We will be probably being called for a vote on that at the June meeting. Again, I would say we hold off in any of the votes on votes until we get that letter from the EPA to see, exactly where we are. Dan, you got any comments on that, or?
I haven't seen any paperwork on it.
Huh?
I haven't seen any paperwork on Primrose.
We got that preliminary package. I haven't seen the prints either, come to think of it. Dave, do we have any prints for them?
Yeah, the prints are on the conference room table.
I was here the other day, we went there.
There they are.
All right, can we get copies made up?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Leisure was just there and so was the airport. I didn't see anything else.
It's the abutting tables where the draft tables are. Those are all the pending plans.
All right, we had asked prior, but this is when Keith was there. We wanted to get copies of the prints prior to, because at least I was not comfortable shuffling through people's paperwork.
Right. So the only paperwork it shows to hook up to the existing stub.
What's,
But do we have prints on it? It shows that.
Yeah.
All right.
That's
If you
there.
can
and
get
it shows
copies
the
made up for
existing
Sherry,
stub.
Dan, and I'd appreciate that.
it was for Primrose, was nothing on the property, I thought.
It's showing a stub on the property.
What was the stuff from?
I don't know. It shows in if you're looking at the property, it shows it in the lower left side on the street map.
All right, when could we get copies of those prints? I know Robin's out.
I mean, I can make copies. It's just a couple pages showing where the hookup is to the stub.
All right, if you could, why don't we say if you can get them ready for Monday or Tuesday next week? And if you could, if you get them down, you could email them to me. I'm out with COVID right now. Okay, continuation of old business from the previous meeting. The EPA visit. As far as I know, it's in the hands of the attorneys. I know nothing more than that. What everyone else knows, I know. From what I gathered talking with Michael Rockland, is that they're just working out the language, not terms or anything like that. And I'm going to ask for people, please refrain from using Facebook to discuss this matter until we get that physical letter in our hands. I personally don't want to see anything getting misinterpreted, flying off the handle until we know what we're dealing with. Like I said, personally, I think they know what they're going to do, but I want to see that in writing. And no one has seen anything in writing yet from them. And I assure everyone out there, the second I get a copy of the draft, I will make it public. With that, we had discussed at the last meeting, one of the proposals I made to them is I'm gonna share that up, put that up. Can everybody see that?
Nothing there. There it is.
Okay. What I propose is that we utilize the money that we have coming in from Dwyer Street. I believe now it's more than the 94.6, whatever it is. The SSES study identified 67,000 gallons of ionized sources and manholes and main pipes that they projected a cost of $134.5 to remove it. Now, we were granted $100,000 at town meeting to remove that. So that'll be available to us the first. What I propose is that we send out a scope for 3 sealed bids as soon as possible to be opened at the July meeting to go after that 67,500 gallons of I&I that we know of right now. I think that'll show the EPA we're being proactive. And if anything, we need that to demonstrate that. So I would like to make a motion that we accept my proposal as it appears on the right-hand side of that screen to go out for a sealed bid on a scope of work to recover that 67,500 gallons of I&I. I believe the scope we could draft out from the SSES study. I'm not precluding, I'm not excluding, excuse me, AECOM from bidding on it, but I'd like to see what competitive bids we can get out there for that money, especially where we're hurting. Dan,
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Shoot.
When you put that proposed bid out, does that talk specifically to areas to be removed, or is that just general work and we'll determine locations later?
SES study had identified specific locations and flows. One of the things that hit us on, well, they mentioned is that we had no way of verifying our
flow numbers if we did remove something. I told
Have
them
we
it wasn't. It
Have we
wasn't
prioritized any of that?
Excuse me?
Have we prioritized that list? Are we,
Well, I would say would go after, we haven't prioritized that. We could prioritize that once we get the bids in.
I would
Personally,
like to do that, yes.
what I would say from my feeling would be go after the manhole, the mains. Manholes are, just a gimme number really, but we'll leave that to Dave. We can discuss that, but before we do anything, I say we get that 67,500 gallons out. We know where it is. We spent the money on the SSES study to identify it. Let's just do it. Dan, do you have any questions on that?
No,
Sherry?
nope. Sherry said it.
Dave?
No, Chuck, the only correction you have is that we increased our budget to 200,000 on I&I this year.
All right, so we have the money.
Yeah.
If we just get that 67,005, that's going to give us a baseline. I know we're coming up to our dry months now. I mean, you look at May is already 4 inches under the average for the rain, so that's going to affect it. But they're not going to take that into consideration now. I think it's too late, but I just want to be proactive with them and show them that we are doing something. So with that.
So, Mr. Chair, I would agree that we need to go after that 67,000. But I would also like to see a more detailed plan, some prioritization of where we're going to find that. And maybe looking at the budget and the funds that are available.
I agree.
And
Did you read
mapping
the
out a good plan.
Did you read the SSES study?
I did.
Okay, did you understand the part where they identified that 67.5?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so what y'all looking for is, for lack of a better, a bullet list, we're going after A, B, C, D, E, F, G first.
Correct.
Okay,
I think that would help with the EPA if it's documented.
okay, no, I agree.
We have a targeted plan rather than just, okay.
Oh, no, I agree with you. We can come up with that.
You're gonna have to, so you already have the preliminary results and you have the refurbishment numbers. You're gonna have to quantify the back end with engineering in order to tighten up the scope. So if you say they predicted, AECOM predicted 4,000 gallons out of said per manhole, you're gonna have to quantify that on the back end with engineering. So you're gonna have to include that, have somebody bid on the engineering as well to back that up.
I agree with you completely, because I want to have something, I want to have a document we can stand by. Is that a scope you could write, Dave, or you need?
Yeah.
You could?
Yeah. We still have some money from the SSES study out, so we could actually reach out to AECOM to help us tighten up the scope of work too.
Okay, but I would like it as a sealed bid. They can bid on it if they wish.
Yeah, they probably won't bid on the refurbishment.
Okay.
No, they wouldn't, that's not their thing.
You know, but let's see if we can get out to as many as we can and see what we get for numbers. With that, I'll take a motion to ask Dave to write a scope of work for that proposal. Do I have a second?
Do the second.
Mr. DeRoss, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Valley?
Yes.
Mr. Hessian's a yes, that's unanimous. Dave, how long would it take you to get that scope? Because what I would like to do is get those bids open by July, because that'll be into the peak of our dry months.
Well, you're gonna deal with procurement issues, so it's gonna probably take a few weeks to get the scope. And then you're gonna have to take out legal advertisement. That's a few $1,000s, and that's also 2 to 3 weeks. And then you're gonna have to set up a bid opening at that point. That's another 2. That's gonna get you into end of July by the time that all gets done. Just by procurement laws.
Okay, so if we could do that, then we could say, give them 30 days to open it, and it gets done when it's done. But I just
You
want
can have a bid up, you should be able to have a bid opening by the end of the middle to end of July, so.
great. Okay, thanks, Dave. What else do we know? I think if I put down moratorium discussion,
Mr. Chair, before we move on, looking at this document, can somebody just check that revenue figure for Primrose?
for where?
Primrose? Are they at $10 or $20?
There, what are you looking at, Sherry?
I'm
What are
not,
you
we're not
for?
looking at the left-hand side right now, Sherry. We're just looking at the
Okay.
going out to bid for the work.
Okay,
Oh, I mean, Primrose,
Table that.
depending on, Sherry, Primrose is at $20. You guys voted that in at the last July.
mhm,
And developmental fee would be 41,000 for that. And then
Mhm.
your permit would be 750. Current I removal numbers for that was 20,000, but if you guys end up adopting what I proposed at the last letter, you would be, that remediation would go to 150. So that would be, you'd add another 130,000 onto I for that.
I don't want to get hung up on those figures right now, Sherry. I
Oh,
just want to
right.
go.
no, that's fine. We'll discuss those at another time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I had a moratorium item on there for discussion with the APA visit. What I would like to do, Sherry and Dan, is set up some kind of working schedule to discuss the moratorium, maybe just between us in an open meeting, no public input, to see what we can come up with some relaxation of it for a September vote. I think we should absolutely I think we can discuss it, but I would be argue strongly against doing anything until we see that letter. Sherry, you want to talk to us about the ordinance modifications, or?
Yes. So in April, we had gone through the ordinance and had some discussions on changing and adding some language so that we can clarify the process of applicants through the sewer department, as well as what we mean by approvals. If you'd like, I can share my screen.
Sure, let me stop mine so you can get it. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Okay, there, I think it's yours.
Let me know when you can see it. Is it there?
Yes, it is. Could you enlarge
Okay.
it a little?
Sorry?
Enlarge? Make it bigger? I'm not a computer person.
How's that? That's a little big.
Oh, it's too big.
Yeah. How's that? Better?
That's fine.
All right. Basically, we had some mostly changes and one addition. This document shows the original, and then in red is the changes. We had 45 days for notification, and we wanted to make it 60 for consistency. We added to have in the package that they give us, the Form K, that indicates that the other town boards have seen it. And in my opinion, this will give us a more finalized version of the plans rather than being first on the list and having another board request changes. Would you like me to read this whole thing or just continue to talk about?
No, just as the changes
Let's
we
know.
want to make, I think it'd be fine.
Okay. We have also asked to have the applicant present the plans and projects at, I said, a reasonably scheduled open meeting, unless we specifically grant an exception, because there may be an exception, but in general, they should be presenting the plans just as 320 did tonight. By making that presentation, it doesn't imply there's any acceptance for the connection. And also, this additional meetings regarding the scope of the request may take place outside of the scheduled open meeting, providing a member of the Rockland Board of Commissioners present, and details of that meeting are then discussed at the next open meeting. So that will allow those construction meetings to take place where changes might be required. And yet at the same time, put those changes on record. Are we good with that?
Yep.
Okay. 2.4B. We took out the sentence, in the event the existing sources of I&I for removal are not known at the time, because in my opinion, they never go away. This does allow the applicant to pay a one-time fee, and the sewer department would determine where the I&I is to be removed using those fees. We did keep the section in there where the builder or the applicant may make the removal if they so desire, but this is just dealing with the fees. This fee applies to all applications for new connections, more than one residential unit, large development, institutional, business, and commercial requests. The final approval and the permit to connect will be withheld if said fees have not been paid. This part of the ordinance also addresses the $20 per gallon. I just made a note that's going to be discussed at a later meeting. Question, changes?
Nope, I think as far as that note, it'll be pending on discussion in June on Dave's recommendations.
Yes, that note is not part of the suggested changes to the ordinance.
Okay.
The applications for approval are submitted to town office planning and zoning. Information is reviewed by the board to evaluate the availability of sewer services and impact upon the system. This is including the flow capacity and the current NIPD's compliance. Project approval does not grant permission to connect. So this is where we are making the difference between having an approval of your project and actually a permit to connect or tie in. Um, 2.4D2E says if a permit is issued, we're changing that to the project approval. And again, making that difference clear. Submittal reviewed by the board. Comments and recommendations submitted by superintendent, including Form K, does not imply project approval. Dave, no disrespect. This is more intended so there's no confusion on when and where the approvals are. And then the superintendent may provide the preliminary fee information, which I'm then suggesting, and again, this is all based on our discussions, an
Yep.
addition where final approval will be provided by a document signed by the commissioners. Final assessment of all fees will be presented with the final approval that will accommodate any changes. Final approval will place the applicant on a wait list to connect if any moratorium or other capacity restrictions are in effect. Final approval will expire if the applicant fails to begin construction within 12 months from the date of approval. Final approval does not imply a permit to connect. Do we have any questions or comments on that addition?
I think you did a good job.
Thank you.
Excellent.
And these are all taken from our notes from our discussion.
Yep.
And 2.4K. Permit to connect will be denied or delayed until the final plans have been reviewed and approved by the board. All fees are paid and the applicant's daily capacity flow is currently available. Final inspection form of approval must be signed by sewer superintendent, drain layer, and the applicant on the day of the final inspection. And the document will be retained by the sewer department as part of the applicant's file. And I believe that's it.
I think that takes care of a lot of ambiguities we found.
I do too. I think having it in writing will certainly allow other boards and commissions something to refer to. And again, it seems to clean up the process and the flow. I am still working on a draft form for the sewer department to use, very similar to Form K, but it would be one more, it will document the whole process of the application so that at any given time we have it.
I think Dave was working on one too, similar to that, so you may want to talk to him about it.
I would love to, yes. We'll do that. Okay.
When do you want to vote on this? You pretty much set on it? Because I am, so.
I'm happy with the ordinance changes as just written and discussed.
Does the lawyer have to look at it?
Pardon me?
Does the lawyer have to look at it?
You know, according to, I think his name was Evan. He said, if I recall, he said he didn't have to, where this is just our ordinance.
Well,
It's not a,
Chuck, if you give me a second, so if this is a true ordinance, a true ordinance has to be voted at town meeting.
That's right. You know, you're right. I think he said if we change it to rules and regulations,
But you
Yes,
would
it
still,
has to be voted.
you'd still, I believe, if you're taking it out of an ordinance, you'd still have to vote that at town meeting, that you're switching it over to rules and regulations.
You know what? Let's double check on that too.
yeah, let's check.
Because you would do a vote here, but it wouldn't be
Valid.
in process or valid till town meeting.
You're right.
Because from what I understand, when I look back, when we were gonna add that grinder,
Yeah.
you know, I put it as a spec, you know, because you can add any spec to what you want as commissioners. But if you do it as an ordinance, I know in the past that I looked up the ordinance and that it was voted on, I think the last time was,
February 2011.
2011, it was voted at town meeting. It was an
Yep.
article, I think it was 32 or 33. Mary's not here. Is she online? Mary Parsons? Because she would know.
Want to,
She would know. I believe an ordinance, so has to go to town meeting for a vote. So. and
Okay,
if
you know what?
wanted- Yeah,
why don't we do this? Why don't you let me draft up an email to Bob Galvin? Sure, if you could email, how can we do this without breaking the open meeting law? Well, you made it public.
I made it public and I believe I sent a copy of this in anticipation of our discussion.
Okay, you could double check that Dan and I received a copy of this. I'll send it over to Bob Galvin and ask how he wants to handle that per the conversation with Dave there, because I would like to want to make sure we're covered. Okey doke?
Yep. Do you want me, let me just send you a fresh copy. I'll
Okay,
just send it again.
okay. Just making note of this. Okay. Superintendent position update. Well, the reason the interviews were canceled, that the two applicants who were really going to be the focal took positions elsewhere. And I had asked Sherry and Dan if you could give me a date for next week. I was hoping to do it in person, but I don't know how long I'm going to be in quarantine. So we could do it by Zoom during the day, just us, of, to talk about what our options are at this point, what you want to do. Dan, did you come up with a day that you'd be available next week?
I have the dentist one day next week. I don't know which day it is. I think it's Wednesday. I had to check with my secretary, my wife.
Okay,
Hold on, I'll just check.
Okay, no. Hey, Dan,
I gotta count.
wait a minute. Tell you what, so we have some dates. Why don't we talk about next Thursday around 2:00?
It'll be after my
Is that
coffee.
okay?
Yeah, should be all right.
Okay,
After
next
my coffee break.
Thursday, 2:00. And I'll try to set it up with WRPS for Zoom. Excuse me. So it should be covered to be an open meeting with no public participation. For new business for the June meeting, I'd like to discuss Dave's recommendation for fees. And I think, pending that letter of the EPA, I think we're probably going to have to discuss Primrose. I'll leave that on the agenda. Hopefully we'll have that by then. I don't think we will. I think that letter is another probably 4 weeks out.
I bet you 90 days.
Well, let's see where it goes. Dave, it's up to you now. Your update.
So just a few things. So, we had, like I made reference to it, the last meeting, we had, AECOM National Water Main come out and try to quantify the pipe that we found in the original SSES study at the school. So National Water Main, I'm looking to get all the information and all the stats from that. They had an outbreak of COVID at their facility, so they had to shut down for a few weeks. So we should have that information within another week. But when we were out there, it was on a Saturday, and they took video of it, and everything was just pouring in on that lateral coming from the school. So they were estimating 30 to 37,000 gallons a day on infiltration.
Okay, what I don't understand, how did that jump up from there, 8,000 gallons from my AECOM?
From what?
AECOM originally projected 8,000 gallons a day.
Yeah, that wasn't the whole lateral though. They were going from a manhole to another manhole. We actually cambered the full lateral to the school, the complete service line to the change in direction manhole.
All right, are you 100% certain that this did not have anything to do with the construction, raising the water table?
Of the school?
Yeah.
No, because they have all subsurface. So we don't, the water table over there is probably less than what it was before, because they've doubled the size of the culvert. So and that also, that don't forget, they had to do full rehabilitation at the exiting manhole that goes underneath the rail trail. So that's full rehabilitation there. And don't forget, we also had your sump pumps from the school, which was 3 at that school, tied into that manhole, and then also a service line from the old trailer. And there was also a drainage overflow from the fields that was tied into that sewer manhole as well. So that has all been disconnected. So.
And when they do that, when National Pipe gets out there, they'll they'll have their recommendations as well, or that'll go to ACOM to. how
Well,
that can be-
the recommendation, so as far as that, I mean, the issue is gonna be this, you're dealing with something that's 30,000 gallons a day. And that was when we didn't have high flow at the plant, and it was on a Saturday. So it was specifically done when school was out, so we could get a full true read on the infiltration. So that infiltration on that lateral will be completely disconnected when the new school goes in. So when they demo Memorial Park next winter, or this winter, sorry, that lateral will be completely taken out. You know, they wanted to cut and cap it. My suggestion with them would be to completely rehab that manhole. So there's, you know, it's not just a cut and cap, because a cut and cap can break down over time, and completely redo that manhole and all the connections to it. So that might be an
That- okay,
application.
when you say that, do you mean line it?
Well, I mean, that would probably be an application with a doghouse, because you have a 20-inch line, that trunk line that runs through the back of Memorial Park, and the lateral is tied directly in it, not with a manhole right now. So that's a direct line, inline. So they would have to disconnect that, not just a cut and cap, but do a doghouse and then completely line that new manhole. So what we've been doing over the past is, once they do that, we have we recommend, or we make them come in with a sealed manhole, and then once it's in place, respray it again with another water, a non-permeable membrane on the outside. So you get double the protection. So
Okay.
that, I mean, so I guess the question is, honestly, is this something? I mean, I know it's a 30,000 gallons a day, but right now it costs us between 20 and 25,000 to rectify something that's going to be disconnected in
Yeah,
7
agree.
months.
I agree.
So, I mean, you know, it's a hard one to toss back and forth, but
Well, but it'll be nice if that just breaks out at the next year, so.
right. So again, we got the pre-quantification on that, you know, to quantify it. And then, you know, we'll bring them back after. So we did the upstream manhole and the downstream manhole, and we'll be able to quantify it once the connection is discontinued at that point. So next spring. Well, what else so the only other thing is, I know they started on the digester boiler work as far as that goes. And I think, Rick, we're just about, I think we're all done on the butternut. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think they made all the modifications. I know you want to put a different system on it, so we can get that over to the SCADA system at the plant. You want to give a quick update on the butternut, or?
Yeah, absolutely, Dave. So like Dave said, right now they haven't handed over to the town yet. It is running great. We've had no alarms. Initially, when they put it on, we had maybe 3 or 4 alarms, but they've gone away. And right now I'm waiting to get a quote. I just had an individual come out from that we handle at SCADA, and he's going to come out and give us a quote. That way, we, like Dave says, we can put it on the SCADA system, because right now the way the system is designed, it's only going to work off of the float control system, which really isn't going to help us here at the plant. So as soon as that's done, he'll be able to put that in, and then I believe at that point the town can take the butternut station over. But so far, so good.
Yeah, and then I think, so we're looking to have another conversation with the company that given us a price on the effluent meter on the backside of the plant. Rick and I discussed this week at our weekly meeting that we're gonna try to set up a tour of a couple plants that already have them installed, and try to get some ideas. You know, we're looking for whatever the installation is going to be. It's going to cover us into the future, not just temporarily. So whatever we put there, you know, permanent for longevity. So get a couple ideas on that.
And Dave, if I may, I actually had a meeting today with ADS, and they have a long-term relationship with Veolia. And although it's not typical, they're willing to come to the facility and install a battery-operated version of the effluent flow meter for you and the town to assess and basically evaluate it. So I'm just waiting right now for kind of like an updated quote to proceed. I think it'll be a good idea. You know, I think it'll be good. We throw it in there and let's see what type of their equipment. But in the meantime, they are going to get me some other places that they have in Massachusetts that we could visit.
Cool. We also obviously check you were CC'd on that email today with
Yeah,
White Pierce to help us with the SSO compliance. You know, that's coming up in July. So I asked them to just do essentially an on-call contract with us on any loose items such as that. So they're gonna help us with that as well as the NIPT's permit. Try to get the bullet point schedule that we talked about or referred to, you know, just to point out all the bullet points and a timetable of everything that we need to get to them. Obviously, the effluent meter, Rick's, Suez is doing an excellent job at the plant, you know, modifying, doing the chemical enhancements at the labs for what we need to do. The only other thing is I know I have a meeting with Weston and Sampson on the rate study next week. And then we also have environmental partners, which used to be EPG. So they're helping us modify the IPP program a little bit because it's the way it's set up right now. It's a little archaic, and we want to just make sure that is going the right way for us right now, because obviously that's a small part of the EPA, but it is still a part of it, and we want to make sure we're proactive and that doesn't come back on us as well. So I think that's.
What about the
That's about it.
CWMP? Where do we stand with that?
What is it?
CWMP?
CWMP, oh, that meeting. So we just had a meeting to go over the GIS system and also some of the areas in town that do not have sewer and the reasons why. That was essentially the last meeting. And then, so they've updated that. And then there's a couple little maps. I'm just waiting for some things from the assessor's office, and I'll forward that over to them in some of those areas that do not have sewer, not active sewer, and that they're septic right now. So some of those have been changed out since what they have. So I think that's about it. So that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Rick, you're on. First of
Okay.
all, I want to welcome Megan.
Yep.
And congratulate her on her new position.
Yep.
Sorry I didn't catch up to you, Megan, during the week. All right, Rick, you're up.
Yep, absolutely. With that being said, as we talked about last meeting, Ed, received a promotion. He's now the project manager at one of our other facilities in Orleans, Mass. And I highly believe in promoting from within. And Megan was an excellent candidate and easy choice for me. She has over 20 years experience. And she has one of the critical things mandated by the Mass DP is with the grade 7C. And so, like I said, I'm happy to have Megan on board, and she's stepped in already. Matter of fact, the MOR report that everyone received, commissioners and David, I can say that Megan did 95% of that. So far, everything's going well at the plant. Couple of things, MOR, like I said, you guys got that. Biggest thing, no surprise, it was the flow was a violation. It was 2.8. Good thing with not much rain. I think we're a little above half an inch so far for this month.
Yeah, I saw it on the news last night that we're something like 4 inches under.
Yeah, which I'm not complaining at the wastewater.
Oh, no.
But
What was the 12-month rolling average?
I'm not sure. I'd have to get you that, Chuck. Yeah, I'm not sure what it is. I think it was maybe 2.9. I think we're still running around 2.9. But thus far for May, I mean, we're only 19 days in. We're currently sitting at 2.3 MGD. So that's really good, considering it's May. Let's see what else we have. Phosphorus update. Megan and I, we started that back. Actually, we started back in middle of March. Through April, like we said, we were going to add different chemicals, increase the chemicals, which is our ferric chloride, our lime, which is also increasing the sludge. And I can honestly say right now for the month of April, our average total phosphorus for the month of April was 0.12, which was
Oh,
tremendous, actually tremendous. So again, going forward, month of May, we're tweaking things here and there to see if we can't even get that number even lower. Still not, again, it's a 7-month study. So I'm happy that we're out of the gate at 0.12, but as we all know, when we get into June and July and August, when the flow does drop, now the wastewater strength is stronger. So there could be some implications there trying to get that total phosphorus down to 0.1. Meg and I had a call the other day with one of our technical people, and we discussed amongst us that we're not sure how much chemicals. It's very not good to keep throwing chemicals out the into the wastewater plant, but at some point we feel there probably will be a break-even point where the phosphorus number is only going to be it's only going to go so low, and no matter how much chemical we throw at it. But again, that's just why it's a 7-month study, and I will definitely keep David and the board updated every month on the study.
How much of an impact is it having on your chemicals, your bill?
Chemical bills, yeah, they're going up. I'd say right now I'm probably just on chemicals alone. Month of April, I'm probably about $6,000 and higher than I normally would have been. So it's definitely something I'm watching.
Okay.
Really no repair and maintenance projects going on at this time right now. Like Dave said, Wilkinson's been in. They were in, I want to say, like 3 or 4 days last week. They've been in a couple of days this week. So they're getting prepped to replace the current digester boiler. I believe right now they're just waiting to get the rental in there. And I think once they get the rental in there, they told me that they're only gonna have to shut the existing system down for maybe 6 to 8 hours. And then once they get that up and running, I think we'll see quite a crew at the facility replacing, demoing the old one, and then start to replace the new one, because we have all the parts are in. They dropped it all off last week. So I believe they're ready to go on that project.
Rick, you don't have any long-term plans for that digester with the cover, do you? Or
Which one? The one with the damage cover?
yeah, are you gonna wait till we get all the CWMPs and all that?
Yeah. I mean, David and I talked about that. I mean, that's going to be it's going to be just throwing a ballpark number out there to replace the fix. Basically, you're replacing the cover. You're not even fixing it. You're probably looking close to, if not more than $500,000.
Oh, I figured, yeah, easily.
Yeah, easily. I agree. And the last time I want to talk about was staffing. Like I said, introducing Megan. As far as the current staff, I'm not really going to get too involved. My HR said I really shouldn't get too involved in the actual responsibilities of every employee. But what I'd like the board to know and everyone to understand is how the staffing plan works in any water, wastewater plant in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Mass DP, they come out to the facility, and it's all depend on the type of equipment you have in the process control. And it's a numbering system. So they start at the beginning of what we call the headworks, and every piece of equipment that you have in the facility, it's assigned a point. And when you get all the way to the end, I mean, we got digesters, so that brings us up, brings our total up. When you get to the very end, it's really a number. And then the number says between 80 and 90, or this plant, between this number and that plant, you're a 4 or 5 or whatever. And many years ago, when they went out and did this study, and they've come back before to redo it when we added things, Rockland was assessed a grade 7 facility. And that's a top, you can't get any higher than that in Massachusetts. And although we're only a 2.5 MGD, we're a 7C, just like any other like city project, Brockton and neighboring, they're a grade 7. So even though little tiny Rockland's 2.5, we're a 7. And so when they did the study, they said, okay, town of Rockland, in order to run that facility, we need 8 operators, 8 certified operators. They don't really care how you designate them. So with eight operators, the only thing they distinguish is that I'm an operator, that the chief operator must have a grade 7. Now Megan is my assistant chief operator. She must have a grade 7. And then going after that, like for all my other operators, if I have a weekend shift, I have to have a, excuse me, a grade 5C operator. So currently right now in Rockland, we have, let's see, I have 4 grade 7Cs and I believe I think three grade 5Cs and 1 grade 3C. So it gives me a lot of flexibility.
Yeah, you're
But-
covered.
But the biggest thing is, no matter what your title is, including mine, we basically have major functions we have to do every day. It doesn't matter what day it is. We have to check pump stations every day. We have to check rounds every day. We have compliance. We have to do lab every day. That's 7 days a week. So if somebody calls out or someone's sick, vacation, really doesn't include myself. It doesn't matter what my title is. These 3 extremely important jobs have to get done. On the weekends, we also press 5 days a week, but on weekends I refrain. I just don't have the staffing to press on weekends, nor do I want to because of the cost of it. So, like I said, it's just the way the Mass DEP regulates it. You could try to go in there to downsize the staffing, but if anything, I really need more staffing. With that being said, I also brought in when I promoted Megan, I brought in another grade 7C operator from another facility. So she's down at the plant now 5 days a week, helping out, doing whatever. Today she did stations, you know what I mean? So the big thing I want to let the board know is right now I'm fully staffed, even though she's a temporary operator. But in the meantime, I've already put a requisition in to replace Megan with another operator. And I actually have an interview. We found one person. I had an interview, I believe it's the first week of June. So again, we're going at it. We're busy. It gets a little tough during the summer because everyone taking vacations. But one thing I can let the board know and townspeople that I strongly believe that we do an excellent job down there at the facility.
Well, I tell you every month you do, and I mean that sincerely.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. That's really about all I have.
Okay. With that, I'll open up anyone from the public that's got any questions on what transpired tonight. Any suggestions for the next meeting? I'll take that as a no. The next meeting will be June 26th at 7 p.m. on Zoom. With that, I'll entertain a motion to end the meeting.
I make the motion.
Second,
All in favor, Mr. DeRoss, Ms. Valley,
yes.
Mr. Hutchins, yes, because he's losing his voice. Thank you very much, everyone. And I'll talk to you later.
Night.
Rick, if you talk to Ed, wish him the best for me, will you? Good night, everybody.
Hi, good night.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.